A fascinating thing about the legislature to me is that it's an oral process, and it creates a written document. Everything that I see in the legislature is the conversation you have when you have staff presenting, when you have lobbyists talking to them, when you have the discussions in the caucuses. It's not looking at the bill. It's not reading the bill. It's not reading the law that might be there. It's who's talked to me? What am I hearing? What did I absorb? So this huge oral process, debate on the floor, all of it ends up in a written document. And that seems to a certain extent incongruous to me. So the first taxes that were levied in Oregon were property taxes in our territorial days. And that revenue was used to help support territorial government, which was very small, and to help, in effect, send representatives back to Washington to lobby for state government. When it became a state government, they continued to levy taxes, and all those were property taxes. So state government in the early days ran on the property tax. Schools, cities, counties, special districts. And so the whole struggle with our tax system has been over that property tax, how to provide alternatives, how to either deal with relief for it. When McCall came in, he thought the school finance issue was the most important issue in state government. So he proposed first a sales tax program to fund schools. It failed at the polls, as had all the previous sales tax efforts. So he came right back the next session and proposed an income tax program to fund schools. And we worked very closely in providing data, providing analysis of that, so he and his staff could make those judgments of what he wanted to do. And I would say after that battle, he got his bill through the legislature, and it was on the ballot. It failed. It came relatively close, but it failed. That, in effect, stimulated the legislature to create the Legislative Revenue Office, because they were reacting to our research. They weren't creating something. So they wanted to be able to create if they were in that situation again. The Senate President, Jason Bowe, and the Speaker, Phil Lang, asked me to come over to the legislature in 1974 and create a Legislative Revenue Office. Well, what I did was actually take the statutory structure of legislative fiscal, and I had Legislative Counsel draft that into a bill that would create the Legislative Revenue Office. I didn't feel we had any parameters as long as we served all 90 legislators in a non-partisan way. So that's what we did. And I schooled the staff quite often on, look, you are staff to a committee, and you are also staff to the 90 legislators. And they make a decision. You don't make a decision. They're the elected officials. You are there to provide objective, nonpartisan information that will help them make a judgment of either yes or no. So you've got to get staff to understand that it is an oral process, that they are watching you, they're listening to you, they're intent on you giving them the information so they can be better when they get to the floor and debate the bill, when they get to the floor and carry the bill, answering people's questions. At that first session, I thought the staff did not do well on the education side. And it was mainly their skills in presenting. So what I did was you had a sort of newly created legislative media office. So I asked them if we took over a room when we weren't having a committee meeting, when no one was in the Capitol, and we would set up the camera and have each of the staff present. And then we would sit down and, as our whole staff, and look at the presentation on the video. Okay, how did you do, Steve? What did you think your strong part? What did you think your weak parts were? Now remember, you're talking to a committee here. So we went through that with each legislative staff member. And it was an amazing process for the next session. They were 200% better, 1,000% better as presenters, not their knowledge, because they knew they had more knowledge than anybody sitting at the committee. It was how they presented it. Most of what you see in Oregon, yes or no, in the tax system has been created by the public through their vote, one way or another. When you go through the history of it, the property tax from territorial days on through, you have a huge amount of public involvement in that. Voters voting for levies, voters deciding, in effect, if there's going to be an income tax or not, or an income tax increase. Voters deciding when the income tax was adopted in 1929, in effect, it was to offset the property tax, the state's property tax, the state levy. It took until 1939 to have enough income taxes to completely offset the state levy. Then, after World War II, there was a large surplus. So the voters decided to use that surplus to, in effect, offset schools' costs in the property tax area. So they took that money and distributed it to schools. I was always available in the commission or in legislative revenue, or when I was director of the department, to speak any place in the state and provide my understanding of the tax system, either historically or what trends I would see and where it would go. And then we would travel with the committee around the state. Take the committee to Ashland, take the committee to Pendleton, take the committee to Grants Pass and have hearings. Let the public come in and talk to the committee. Have the committee chat with the public as well to hear what they've got to say. So it was a great privilege for me to work in that environment and to work with so many wonderful people.